All right, so it's been a while since I've made one of these trade explanation videos, and this UXIN is a pretty good example. So I want to explain the call that I made in the chat room today and kind of break it down so you can kind of understand why I take the trades that I take, okay? Also, real quick, let me mute that. Something kind of cool unfolded today in the chat room. I got an email from a brand new member, right? And the email, the gist of it was, hey, English is not my first language. It's my first day in your chat room, and I thought you said, how did they word it? TNXP. All right, I had to open up my email to get the wording right. They thought I said TNXP is going to RAM, which I've never said. So I don't know what it was that I said that made them think that. So they jumped in, and then they ended up getting caught in a halt and got their butt handed to them. And I always feel terrible if something like that happens to anybody. But at the bottom of their email, they went on to say, "I'm not blaming you. I'm the only one to blame for my decisions, and I accept my losses." Which I'm really that's a good person and a good future trader right there that is already accepting responsibility for their losses. And the gist of it was they're just trying to get a handle on the terminology in the chat room and stuff like that, to which I basically replied, you should never join our room or any other room in the world and just jump into any trade. We're very strict about, telling people, come in and spend 2 solid weeks just asking questions during the daily Q&A and watching what we do in the morning, right? So then there'll be no question, but nobody should ever jump in any stock ever because somebody said I'm long here, which I didn't even say, by the way, but they thought they heard me say that. Again, English isn't their first language. So there's a great lesson there. And so we started talking, and basically I started rambling, and I told everybody, remember that movie Raiders of the Lost Ark? Anyone ever see it? Now, it shows how old I am because I love this movie, but remember this guy? This amulet thing was fell into the fire, and it apparently had the code to where the Ark was hidden, right? And he wanted that so bad, he grabbed it even though it was laying in fire, and he ended up losing it in a battle or whatever, but he had the info seared into his hand, right? So I was using that as an analogy because I said, basically, if you ever try to trade with just partial information, right? People that learn just enough to get themselves in trouble, right? Like you don't show somebody how to use a gun in 10 seconds and then turn them loose with it, right? It's just enough info to get themselves killed. Well, that's this guy. He thought he had all the information to find the lost ark, but the rest of the information was on the other side of the amulet that burned into his hand, right? So he was working with partial information, and then what I thought was really funny, it was actually from the member that got stuck in that halt that has broken English, right? That person PM'd me after that and said, oh, by the way, that guy in that movie ended up getting his face melted off later. And I thought that was really funny and also kind of charming to see somebody that got stuck in a halt and lost money today to still have kind of a sense of humor and say that. But I thought to myself, what a great analogy, right? And then he went on to say, that's an apt metaphor, right? When you're trading with just enough information to get yourself in trouble, you're going to end up getting your face melted off. And I wanted to share that story because it was interesting how it unfolded, and I may write a blog using those pictures because it really is an apt metaphor, right? And then also I want to show one other thing. This is just the last, this is this week, which was only 4 days of trading, and each little change in this line is not a day, it's a trade. Each green dot represents new highs for the year, and this is how I'm ending this week. New highs for the year, and in an ugly, ugly, weak market, and I don't even short, right? I think I took 2 shorts all last year or something. Still doing very well, sitting at highs for the year, and doing very well in an ugly market by waiting for A-plus setups and only trading A-plus setups. Speaking of which, I'm going to show you one today. So we had UXIN on watch. And I already traded it earlier, by the way, through 4, but I'm not going to explain that trade. And it only went to 417, but it was still easy money because it worked perfectly. It was one of my favorite setups for a morning gap play, even though it didn't really follow through. But because I was trading it as a morning gap play, had it on a chart, and was actually on the mic at the time when I saw this setup. So what do you have here? You had a huge move yesterday, and then look at this. It actually did this. It had this kind of range and went into this. which is, I don't think I've ever seen that before. With this kind of volume and this kind of range, and then went into just straight sideways. If that doesn't make you worry about a stock or worry about the market or think something's rigged, nothing will. It's impossible for me to fathom that both bulls and bears decided after 2.5 hours that nope, this is the price it should be at for the rest of the day. That I don't think I've ever seen that before. But anyway, so now what do we have? We've got a huge move yesterday, a gap up today, and then kind of a cup and handle, and the high of day, by the way, was 419, and a big seller at 420. My thinking was, if that seller gets taken out, you've got a crystal clear stop right below this little range, right below this little consolidation it's in. So you've got a great tight stop because it hasn't come a long way to get there. It's in a sideways range. High of day just above. Recent high flyer. When I say recent, I mean yesterday. Fairly low float. And so the seller gets taken out at 420. The trigger idea, basically 421, if that seller gets taken out. Worst case stop below this range at 410. So 11 cents risk. And right now, as I'm making this video, it hit 470. So a 51 cent move on 10 cents risk and never came back and challenged the entry, right? But this, in a vacuum, would I take any stock with this intraday setup? Probably not, in a weak market and you've just got some sort of random intraday cup and handle. But what makes this such a great idea is because it did this yesterday, right? You always want to focus on the stocks that are in play, the recent high relative volume movers. That one tip alone could help change your trading, for the better for the rest of your life. A lot of people focus on setups, but they might not. It might not be a stock that's in play. Nobody's watching it, and they see a great cup and handle. They see this great setup, but nobody's watching it. You're not going to get any follow through. All right. So this was a seller on the tape, tight little cup and handle, tight range, tight stop, and big mover yesterday. That's a clean setup. I'll take that every time. Enjoy your weekend. I am not going to fight the rest of this market. I'm thrilled to go out of this week at highs for the year in the recent ugly tape. And as I'm talking, by the way, it's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 hours left, and the SPY is hitting lows for the day. So be careful out there, and we'll see everybody on Monday.